right, all right. Here we are once again at Pastor B's kitchen table, and I welcome all you back to the table. I'm so glad that you told all your NIMS to join us because it is Friday, and it is time for us to break it down, chop it up, and put it back together again. And I'm so honored to have a guest today. I mean, just not any guest, but a very, very special guest, Dr. Kenyatta Gilbert. Dr. Gilbert, will you say hello and introduce yourself, please?
Certainly. Hello, Pastor Hamilton. Thank you for having me. It is such a delight to formally become acquainted with you. You have been instrumental in my brother's life, who lives in Houston, and you serve as his pastor. And so I am indeed honored to have an opportunity to just share with your audience.
Amen, Dr. Gilbert. Dr. Gilbert, if you would, just tell them a little bit about what you do and who you are, if you could, please.
Sure thing. So I teach at Howard University as professor of homiletics. Homiletics is the study of preaching, the academic study of preaching. And I reflect quite a bit on what it means to preach the gospel in the here and now, and thinking about the history of preaching. Particularly, my emphasis has been on prophetic preaching, and I've observed that in a number of settings. I've traced the history of Black preaching from the colonial North American period, which is the period beginning in slavery, and so that has been a good bit of my academic work. Now, I'm born and raised in Waco, Texas, long way from home.
Yes, you are.
But I've been away from home half my life. I have attended Baylor University, which is where I pursued and completed a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in religion. And a good bit of that time in coursework, I decided that I would yield to the Holy Spirit and allow God to lead me. And so I accepted my calling my first year at Baylor. And from that point on, I was licensed to preach at 19. I'm now 46 next month. And I'm just very grateful that God has been kind to me as I've traveled this journey. It is quite interesting as well that my father was the quintessential, in my judgment, model for ministry, and so a good bit of my work centers on how I observed his ministry as both very active in the church, but also civically active in the community. And so that has been a lot of my passion. He transitioned my freshman year in college, and in some ways, I did not want to travel in his footsteps, but some of that ministry bug rubbed off on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I listen to my children all the time, and they say, "Dad, we don't want to do that. We don't want no part of that." And yet, I see little breadcrumbs of following along the way.
Absolutely.
So never say never. God has a great sense of humor. Yeah. Doc, I think the last time we kind of like unofficially talked, it was at the very genesis of the George Floyd murder. And now we're 3 weeks going into a month now past that, and yet it still is raw and real today as when we first saw the video.
Yeah.
And so with you being where you are up in DC and at Howard University, what I call one of the schools of the prophets, you're training prophets to come out and to bring forth a word from the Lord for the here and now. I like how you said that. It's some pie in the sky. It's the nasty of the here and now.
That's right.
And so with that, what are you telling your students?
So first of all, I lament. I think this is a very, very interesting time. There seems to be little hope because clearly in our society, the value of Black life, it's just not very high in the judgment and in the eyes of so many of our white counterparts. And it is quite clear to me that the value and the worth of our own being is under assault. I am encouraged, however, that a number of our youth have been engaged in activism through protests and trying to really say to our society from top to bottom, enough is enough. How many more of us have to die in order for us to feel safe in this country? And so in light of all of that, I am in some ways concerned that many of us have adopted preaching modes and methodologies that don't speak to this present moment. And I think it's problematic when your hermeneutic has no social justice agenda, when you cannot speak on behalf of the oppressed, when in fact Jesus himself announced that he was anointed to do just that. To proclaim good news to the poor, recovery of sight to the blind, and to let the captives free. And if our work is not in alignment with that vision, then I question what it is we're really preaching.
I always say I think that we're preaching at the Bible, but we're not many times preaching the Bible.
That's right.
Because we come to it with so many biases. And unfortunately, what I hear a whole lot, Doc, is people trying to justify a position they already had before they even open the Bible. You know,
right.
kind of like trying to proof text their own ideology in a lot of ways.
Sure.
But I know, as you said, I'm encouraged, as you said, by the younger generation who are out there, who are saying, you know, enough is enough. And I tell the old heads, get out of the way, support them, provide the wisdom that they need, maybe the economics in which they need, provide it. It's time to listen. It's not a time to just simply tell them what to go and do, because you know, I remember working in corporate America. There was something called golden handcuffs. And the idea being is that after you've been there long enough, you kind of amass enough resources and a very lucrative retirement account and a nice home and a nice car and a nice credit score. You don't want to do anything to upset the apple cart. In other words, now they own you. And I'm saying, in spite of that, you must be willing to actually pay the price, because I really believe, as you said, I believe it's worth it. I believe our humanity, our dignity, who we are as children of God, the image of God is worth the fight. And whatever the sacrifice is just part of the whole collateral damage.
It's part of it.
It's just part of it.
Yeah, I don't know how you live the life of a Christian without some manner of suffering and adversity to contend with. We all have to bear a cross. And unfortunately, much of that cross-bearing load, many of us have to go it alone because either our communities are not supporting our efforts, or we have taken up crosses that are not our own. I think in some ways, when we think along the lines of racism, for example, that is a cross that African American people should not have to bear. We were brought to this country forcibly and for the purpose of profits and to secure the well-being of many of our white counterparts. I know the language of white privilege and the language of white supremacy doesn't sit well with many. Many who say that, well, that was my ancestors, not me. So why are you persecuting me, or why are you requiring something from me that I'm not directly responsible for? But if you're benefiting from a society that privileges persons who share the same skin color, or disenfranchises those
Yeah.
who share the same skin color.
Right.
Then you have to own up to the fact that there is inequity in society that we oftentimes don't want to look at. We don't want to do the analysis that is required, the social analysis, in order for us to really have that the kind of empathy and compassion for our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so, I think all the time that, the Christian quest should be reconciliation in the end,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no reconciliation without justice.
That's right. Which comes into the idea, Doc, of the issue related to repentance.
That's right.
Because we got to own this thing. This is sin.
It's sin.
And so when any sin, there must be and I really believe that's why the healing cannot even begin to happen. Because just to bring that up, you got two extremes. You've got on one hand, you've got the whites who get very defensive about it.
Right.
And then you have blacks who feel offended by bringing the subject up because some falsely assume that we're in a post-racial America.
That's right.
And so those are the things that my grandfather and great-grandfather fought, but look at how I'm living. Race not an issue now. And so you got those two extremes. So no one ever really says, that's wrong. And as you said earlier, although you may not have owned the slaves, you benefited from what came as a result of owning a slave. And so you've got to be able to address that issue. And that's a very radical issue, but it's a truthful issue, what you're saying.
Yeah. It's not just race at heart. I think we live in these moments where the intersections are what become the binding force where we find ourselves in bondage. And so oppressed people, they oppress people. Yeah. And oppression can take on many forms, and it mutates. It becomes racial discrimination promotes class discrimination, and class discrimination also promotes colorism, where even within our own racial family, we begin to separate ourselves or put hierarchies together.
Yeah.
Some folks matter and others don't.
That's right.
And that's unfortunate. It's regrettable.
You were talking some time ago. I remember you alluded to the fact of just the whole slavery and the whole profitability of it. Because I heard a megachurch pastor say that there was a blessedness to slavery. And I was appalled. So if you could just comment on that.
Sure. Well, I'm a Lecrae fan.
Yeah.
If I listen to hip hop, I'm going to him first.
Yeah.
Because I feel as if he has the right heart. He has the talent to break through both in secular settings as well as in religious settings. And what disturbed me most is that oftentimes our white brothers and sisters invite us into conversations without being clear about the agenda of the conversation. Mm-hmm. And so in this particular conversation, you had the founder or one of the CEO of Chick-fil-A, you had Lecrae, and then you have this pastor.
Right.
And the scene is set up in a way in which an African-American person is invited into a setting, and the evangelical pastor suggests that Lecrae believes what he believes, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so when he began his commentary on race and the labeling of white privilege, he decides he wants to pivot in the conversation and say something having already established the conversation protocol, and Lecrae is sitting there just, he's nodding, but he's nodding not in full agreement. He's nodding because he's trying to understand where he's going. Where are you going with this? And clearly we live in a soundbite culture, and all it took was, that one statement that he made. And now Lecrae is made to feel as if he made this tremendous error, when in fact I think he came to that conversation with the spirit of diplomacy. I mean, and often we're not coming to these conversations about race and racial injustice with a chip on our shoulder,
right?
As much as we really want to begin the work of repair and healing and all of that. We wanted to listen. But I just felt like the damage to his reputation as an African American who clearly has made leaps and bounds just to be in settings where he can have conversations that don't end in hostility. And so it incensed me. To say no least. Because clearly, slavery was not a blessing. It was a curse.
Exactly.
Curse. Right. And generationally speaking, that curse hasn't been broken, because at the root of it is sin. Because you don't value that which God has created, and God has created humankind. If that's not, if you can find yourself being blessed by that, you're essentially saying you're superior to those who have not been blessed.
That's right. Exactly. Which gets back to the whole deal of us not being human and being cursed, a very inferior race. And so it really reinforces all that dogma. And you're right. I feel like it was a setup, because I don't think that Lecrae would have gone down that path if he knew that that's what this guy was about to articulate. I really don't believe. I want to believe that there's no way he would have just walked into that blindly. But I was appalled someone could even say, it's crazy. But my daughter, who went to a PWI, was told in high school that it was a blessing for blacks to be in slavery because they got to come to America. And I'm like, I'm like, there would be no America without us, and so I'm saying that's just, so you showed how ingrained it is. Like, I wanted to ask you, how does it go for you? You're at Howard University. You're over the School of the Prophets. What is it like for you when you start crossing that aisle, when you're trying to reach out to form some sense of reconciliation between you and our white brothers, or you and our brown brothers? What is that like for you coming out of HBCU?
Right. No, it's great that God has taken me in the direction God has. Having attended a predominantly white institution, Baylor University, and then matriculating from this Baptist school to the flagship school of the Presbyterian Church, Princeton Seminary. So learning that Baptist tradition and the Reformed tradition, and thinking about, where is my voice in this space? It creates a bit of double consciousness, if you will, that you're trying to process while you are trying to find your voice. And so in the space of Howard University, it's more of an eclectic environment, denominationally diverse, but predominantly African American, or I should say predominantly Black. And that space has given me some academic freedom to experiment with my methodology, to see what things that I've imported I can now question and say, well, this is not really relevant to the cultural experience that formed me. And this is actually what is a distortion of what I believe Christ was all about. And so a part of my mission, I think, is to reset and rethink curricula so that continue to uncritically adopt practices that are less than freeing and are not liberative.
Right, right.
And that's what we need. We need the kind of pedagogy that enables us to be empowered in a society where we have human worth and value.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a road you traveled from Baylor to Princeton, now at Howard University.
Yeah, all from a preacher's home that, my dad wasn't seminary educated. He pursued a degree in religion until his health failed. And as you know, the requirements to preach in many African-American Christian spaces does not necessarily require formal theological education.
Right.
If you have the gift, if God has anointed you, or if you just showed up as a jackleg minister,
you up next Sunday.
If you're able to, in some ways, gain a following, then, to some that's sufficient. But I think, just as any profession, you want to equip yourself because you're dealing with the lives of people.
That's right. Yeah. Doc, that is phenomenal. Man, I tell you. So what's your counsel to the older generation, blacks, and what's your counsel right now to the younger ones?
So again, generationally speaking, I think we fight for turf, when in actuality, we have to find ways to be in cooperation, to collaborate, to be in a coalition in order for us to address some of the most pressing concerns and problems of our communities and world in general. And so, if the elders are intimidated by the youth because the youth are savvy, techno-savvy, they come with a different energy. If these groups are fighting for turf as far as relevance, then I think we miss an opportunity to grow one another. And it takes humility. It takes humility to enter intergenerational, cross-generational conversations. And so I would just say, I'm beginning a program I call MAP, which is Mentoring a Preacher, whereby, a seasoned preacher will agree to be a transitional mentor for someone who is emerging, who is coming up, wants to know what it means to be a pastor, wants to know what types of things to avoid, wants to know, what sermon preparation strategy will help to sustain a ministry. And then you have folk who are their churches are certainly hemorrhaging because they don't have technological infrastructure in order to reach the people that they serve. And so you need the energy of young people and the brain power of young people in order to stay current. So I think that's how I would respond to that question.
I really like how you're saying it about how you're trying to train and to help those, because that is so desperately needed, because everyone just can't initially just leave and pick up and just go to school.
Right.
So what is your counsel to them?
Well, what I'm trying to do with my website ministry, the Preaching Project, which I founded in 2011 after I published my first book, The Journey and Promise. The mission of the site is to create a forum around Christian Christ-centered preaching, bringing together theologians, working pastors. Pretty much, I see it as a place to be mentored, a place to share preaching resources, a place to be in dialogue with one another, to engage one another based on certain questions that we may have or disagreements we may have theologically,
Mm-hmm.
but sharing in a space where we can grow through interrogating text, questioning other folk. But the primary aim is to better serve African American churches and communities, because I think when our communities are more healthy,
Right.
Spiritually and physically and materially, then we're better positioned to have greater influence and impact in our larger society, and hopefully that's generated through the spirit of love.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That is profound, Doc. I had no idea that you had that going on. I mean, that is so timely. When did the Lord birth this in your heart, brother?
So it came to me, back, like I said, back in 2011. I had begun my first book in 2009, The Journey and Promise of African American Preaching.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wrestled with the fact that I was not a senior pastor.
Okay.
And when I left seminary, I just knew, God was going to call me to a church. I was going to be, the next, whoever.
Right.
But that wasn't the path God had for me, and gave me a vision for ministry that could bridge, what folk are doing in the pulpit and what folk are doing in the classroom, and trying to facilitate conversations whereby the church and the academy are not at war.
Yeah.
Not apart either.
Yeah.
They can mutually enrich one another. And so, I see myself kind of distinctively called.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that I'm answering the call. But again, if I'm honest, part of me says, man, I wish God called me to a church because I love people. And, the setup would have been clearly different. But over time, you start to realize that no, God has a providential plan,
right,
getting you ready for what you can't even see yet.
Yeah.
And so to be an encourager to preachers, to be particularly pastors who can become exhausted in the work in which they do. And, once they leave formal theological training, it's really hard to continue to do the professional development that needs to take place so that the preaching stays fresh. Their ways of connecting with other ministers stays fresh. I mean, there's just so many opportunities that I think are missed because many ministers go into this space and they become very lonely in the work in which they do, even though they're serving with the people in mind. Sometimes we really don't take that time to step back and replenish ourselves, our mind, our body, and our spirits.
Yeah. Many of us as pastors are loners. You're alone. We're loners. That could be a dangerous thing. It really can. And then I know I'm in a season in my life right now. My family and I are that we're having to receive from people. People are trying to bless us and help us, and that's difficult. I honestly will say that's difficult being in on that side of the fence.
Right. So what are you doing in order to kind of stay sane and to also humble yourself and say, I've been faithful in the vineyard. How about now I be on the receiving end and be okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know many of us who are doing faithful ministry, we're always perceived as being the people who are just profiting on the people, who are pimping the people, make our lives luxurious, and all of that.
Wow.
And so when you find folks who are actually doing the work and they're doing it faithfully, and who love it enough that they would not necessarily, they could do it without being compensated.
Yeah.
That's when I think you have that the kind of heart for ministry.
Yeah.
But clearly, no one can live without without income.
That's right. That's right. The labor is worthy of the hire. That's right.
Right. That's right.
We got all them paths, don't mother the ox and all that. We got all that. That's right. But that is so true, though, Doc. And so I receive what you're saying. I like what you said also, because many, whether they're men or women, feel as if that unless I am in that sacred space, whether leading a congregation or preaching every week or whatever it may be, then my calling is not as significant, and my calling really doesn't even matter. And there's a lot of good, frustrated theologians and preachers and teachers and leaders because they never got that call, or if they did get that call, it didn't go the way in which they would have desired it to go. And yet to know that in the providence and the sovereignty of God, that, hey, God has not forgotten you, and God has a place for you that's equally important and necessary to the body of Christ.
That's right.
And I think communicating that message, and I like what you said also about the importance of that. We who are in ministry, we need to continue being sharpened, continue sitting at the feet of other people, continue to go to school, or to allow ourselves to be around environments where we can add more to what God has given us. I think I'm an advocate of that. Is that who are you allowing to teach you? Who are you allowing to express, to enhance your own giftedness? So
that's right.
That's powerful, Doc, because somebody just like you, they wonder, Lord, what happened to my call? Why not in the pastorate yet? They have a great job, and they would leave it tonight, but they would leave that job, but they haven't got that call, and so they're wondering, what should they do in a time like this? Last thing, Doc, being prophetic. Speak for a word. What do you mean when you say being prophetic?
When I say be prophetic, I think that justice is at the heart of God, but hope is also at the heart of God. So being prophetic is not just criticizing everything. It's not just being militant in spirit. To be prophetic is to cast a vision of hope that this present reality is not the only reality, that God is not only sovereign, but God is present in the here and now, and requires that each of us co-participate with what God is doing in the world. And so it's not this sense of God is going to do everything. And it's not a sense of fatalism.
Right.
So that, we have no agency, or we have no abilities. But in my work, I've unpacked, I think, 4 characteristic marks of what it means to preach prophetically. And the first is that it unmasks systemic evil and self-serving practices, and that it also refuses to relinquish hope in the face of collective misery and despair. And it is a word for the people that names reality. It connects what we do to what we say. And the 4th characteristic of prophetic preaching, to do that prophetic work, is it carries an impulse for beauty. So it's hard to really be a prophetic preacher without having a love for language, because through our language, we're able to point to reality in a different way that normal prose just cannot. So when God gives you kind of a way of insight, where the poetic side of yourself speaks, and you're just like, where did that come from? I got this illustration, and this illustration really makes the point of what it means to do justice in the world, and connects the scriptures with symbol. And I think that that's a part of what it means to preach prophetically as well.
Amen, Doc. I thank you, my brother, because the thing I love about it is at a time like this, that you hear a lot of voices. And you want to hear God's voice, but also mediated through man. And so we must stand. I'm always big saying, what is the church doing? What is the church saying? What are you preaching? I always just in my own little world, I think about during slavery.
Yeah.
Every Sunday, what were those pastors preaching? And probably good job. Keep doing what you're doing. We don't know. Good job.
Yeah.
Having revival. Yeah, probably so. But then now, in the moments and the time we're living in, it does behoove me to ask the question, well, then what are we preaching? What are we saying? So I'm saying that God's people must be prepared in times like this to stand and to say what thus saith the Lord, and understand that when God sent a prophet, it meant change, certainly, but also it meant great crisis for that prophet.
Why? Jesus was a prophet who did ministry in the empire.
Yeah.
So the empire can't handle truth.
Yeah.
It doesn't take truth well, because the empire is not God.
Yeah.
And human beings create empires, and Jesus has come to subvert that and to say, no, you don't have all the power. God has the power.
That's right.
And the prophet has to enter that space at a cost.
Yeah, at a cost.
Enter that space at a cost, because love tells the truth.
Amen. Amen. If you just worried about Cadillacs and Carnival cruises and anniversary checks and stuff like that, you'll never be prophetic. You never will be.
Never will be. I agree with you.
You never will be. You must say, this is what I'm called to, and whatever comes with it, it just comes with it. Yes. And that's a hard statement, because things do happen. Because I said, our Savior got hung out on the cross. he got hung out on the cross. Yeah, but we thank God for the resurrection. Doc, you have blessed my soul, and we're going to be talking again, and I want to talk about some things that we can maybe partner together in. And so I thank God for raising you up for such a time as this. I'm not going to hold it against you with you being at Howard University, and my family is a Prairie View family.
Prairie View family. I got family from Prairie View too.
Yeah.
Much love, much respect to Prairie View.
Yeah. I mean, we got a whole lot of Howard folks running around this church right now.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I pray for them. Though. I pray for them. Man. But Doc, thank you for your words and your wisdom and your insight, and you're making a difference in the body of Christ for generations to come.
God bless you, my brother. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, so please tell your parents, tell your in-laws and everyone else that what you heard today, you heard from Dr. Gilbert, directly from Howard University, and we thank God. And our great Savior is certainly a liberator, because he knew that the captives need to be set free. So we thank him for our salvation. May God bless you. May God keep you. And I'll see you next week right here at Pastor B's Kitchen Table.